All right, welcome to the week 14 recap. So, these recaps are in two parts. We're going to first go over the account activity for the past week, and then we'll close out with the overall account balance. So, how is the account looking with all the ups and downs year to date? So, it's kind of a active week for sure. So, let's kind of kick off. We had our first CGDV dividend of the year. So about 352. So CGDV is not it's not a big dividend player similar to JEPQ or SCHD. I think the dividend was about 11 cents per share. But as I said, similar to DIVB, is that this 352 is going to be the lowest dividend we receive for the year, the lowest total dividend received for the year, because again, every week we're putting in $100 into this ETF, and so you kind of do the math. By the for July, halfway through the year, it should double, and then by the end of the year, the dividend received should be about quadruple this amount. So say maybe $14 if you had to multiply by four by the end of the year, by the fourth dividend. This should be about quadruple the amount. So looks small, but again, as I said, do not despise small beginnings. So we all have to start somewhere. So this is a start. And then with all dividends, they're reinvested, so that reinvestment got us about zero point zero 0.09 a premium, so got a zero point 0.1 tenth of a share. Um, so again, doesn't look like much, but it's more than the account had on April 1st. So that's the kind of goal, is to build up, build up, build up, build up. Okay. Then on the third, we had JEPQ, our sole monthly dividend payer. I think this was probably the biggest uh, dividend per share since October. I think it was about 54 cents per share. So we got our $66 in cash, and that bought us about 1.279 shares. So again, two things. So again, one, this was our highest dividend payout so far for JEPQ, and and correspondingly, this is the highest amount of shares uh, we've been able to buy off of a dividend reinvestment. So you kind of compare JEPQ to CGDV, but at one point JEPQ was down here. It was only through reinvesting and buying and buying and buying more shares that it got up to the $66 mark. So again, you start small, start where you can, and build up from there. Okay? So those are our dividends received and reinvested. Then appear on the fourth also, we did what's called a roll down and out. Okay. So if you recall from last week, recap, I had sold a put, this put right here. I sold it for $69. Since that point, NVIDIA has, along with the gone to hell, uh, and so this $69 put, uh, you know, at expiration had a value of 1,060. Okay, so if you're tracking at home, that's about a 1,400% difference. So in other words, if I had bought the put, or if you had bought this put, April 4th, 105 strike, if you bought that put for $69 and you went to cash out, buy to close, if you went to cash out at this put on the 4th, you'd have received $1,060. So you'd have made a 1,400% return on your money in less than 2 weeks. I mean, obviously a phenomenal return. Hindsight's 2020. I mean, if anyone knew the market would have done what it did on the 3rd and the 4th, you would have probably, liquidated your account and put it all in puts. No pun intended. Okay? But I think given the volatility, and I was able to roll down. So going from 105 to 104, so basically kind of taking $100 off the table, roll down and out. So from the 4th to the 25th. Because if I put it to the 11th or to the 17th of April, the 11th or the 18th of April, I would not have been able to roll for net credit. So you don't always have to roll for net credit. Sometimes it's better to take assignment. I'm not going to go into a whole options 101, but there's many different things that could have been done. I just felt this was the best case for my strategy and for the overall account is to kind of roll out and down, but certainly not out the woods yet. So in some ways, it's kind of, you can look at it as you're kind of you're kicking the can down the road. You're kind of delaying the inevitable. So sometimes it makes sense to roll down and out. Sometimes you're just making things worse by rolling down and out. But only time will tell. Okay. And then to close out the week, just the normal buys. I'll kind of pop them in so you can see what the prices were. So about 31.81. So again, a big drop. I think this is actually the first time that for CGDV that the $100 buy was able to buy 3 plus shares. That's with a drop in the market. And then for DIVB, two shares. Again, with the big price drop, I think the partial buy of 0.319 is probably the biggest that I bought as well. So like I always say, it's kind of tough to stomach, but the kind of good thing is that as the price goes down, your dollar cost averaging, you're buying more shares per transaction, and then when the ETF recovers, you're gonna have even more shares to gain. So the net, it's kind of hard to see it right now, but the net will be positive. So even if on December 31st the ETF prices were the same as they were on the very first buy in January, the ETF will have a positive value because we're kind of buying at kind of the bottom. We don't know where it is in the cycle, but we're kind of buying on the downswing. So when it swings back up, even if the year to date growth is 0 for the ETF, we will have gained because we're buying it at a cheaper price now. So the ETF doesn't actually have to technically kind of like grow from your initial starting point to have growth in a defined time period. So that wraps up all the activity for the week. All right, so moving on to the overall account balance. I mean, there's no sugarcoating. It was a brutal week. Um, I think definitely one of the kind of maybe one of the worst weeks in recent memory. We're not going to get into the whys. You follow the market at all. You you know what's happening, but it's kind of go down the checklist. I mean, SCHD, kind of hammered. It was kind of the shining star last week, up about 2 point something percent. I think almost 3%. All the way down to -10 in a week's time, which kind of shows how brutal the swings were. JEPQ down, down big. Certainly the dividend helped a little bit, or it would have been down even more. And then similarly, FNILX, it's called the near the SPY or SPY equivalent, also down 15%. So definitely a lot of big swing there. And then Apple just just demolished. 31% down year to date. It's again just getting destroyed uh, so far. But these could be good, good entry points for the long term investor. Microsoft again also similar to JEPQ with FNILX down about 16%. So again, these are we don't again no one knows what's upcoming, what's the rest of the year, but compared to February, these don't look like bad entry points if you're kind of coming into to dollar cost average. I personally wouldn't if I had money to throw, I wouldn't throw a bunch of money into these at these prices, but I would definitely look at starting or adding to a position in small increments. New ETFs also took a big hit. So these are kind of both DIVB and CGDV, both down over $150 each. So even though they're kind of new, and that's kind of one thing that even kind of solid dividend ETFs are not immune. And look at SCHD, kind of nothing is immune when the overall market, kind of goes down that sharply. But as I repeatedly say, we're getting, as you kind of saw in that activity section, we're getting cheaper shares. So, if it kind of stays at that price or goes on a little bit lower, completely fine with that because again we know that long term is going to recover. So I will gladly take the cheaper shares at a higher quantity now for more gain later. And then the Nvidia put down a little bit from where it was rolled out to, but still a lot of time, which can be good. It can be bad. But definitely a high overall value. Okay. So that brings the account total, including the negative value of the NVIDIA put, to 41,083. No big surprise that year to date it's easily the largest negative deficit at negative 3,707, which represents growth of negative 8.28%. Okay, so again probably one of the worst weeks in recent memory. Everything down the board, but again, I think that the cash, the cash position is helping. Then using that cash to kind of sell CSPs. Although this one is obviously is a bit negative, but you using the cash to generate cash, and then using the cash to dollar cost average into some lower prices. So that wraps up week 14. I hope everyone kind of stays safe out there. Don't get to don't be what's the word? Don't be a panicon. Don't panic. Just be smart. Trade your plan. Plan your trade. Trade your plan. Buy and hold. Just again, just have your plan. Have your plan in place. If you're buying, buy smart. If you're not buying, you want to wait. You kind of just do whatever feels right, as long as you kind of have your solid plan in place. With that being said, I hope you all have a great week in the market, and on to the next one.